Good afternoon, participants. We want to welcome you to our webinar today. I'll be the host for today's discussion. My name is Engineer Chris Owanda, and we are delighted as the GPA group here to welcome you to this overview of the new standard tender documents and formats. So this introductory peer discussion is a discussion between the panelists and yourselves as an introduction. So we have just opened the webinar room and participants are streaming in. We are 3 minutes away from 12 o'clock, the time that we said we would start. We have a very good response to today's session. So we will just make sure that we've got a good quorum for us to start off. The beginning section is extremely important for everybody, and we want them to catch up with it even as they start. So let's give them a couple of minutes before we can call upon Mr. Mbuba Mbungu, who is starting off with us today. In addition to Mbuba Mbungu, we have Mr. Joshua Wamiti, who is logging in from Kigali. He's a very experienced resource person in today's panel. Joshua, with Mbuba and myself, we were actually part of the original team that was reviewing these documents. We met several times to work on them. So today you are very lucky to have 3 panelists who were part of that original team. And the other 2 panelists, Pamela and Alex, reviewed the documents at a much later stage. But you are dealing with people who have had a hands-on experience with these documents. We have Pam. Dr. Pam is a very experienced practitioner and consultant. She's logging in from Nairobi. And she'll be sharing one of the forms and documents. Then we have got Alex, who is also logging in from Nairobi, and they'll also be sharing, he'll be sharing one document. So we'll have a general introduction by Mr. Mbuba, who will set out the framework on how these documents were developed, the difference between the former documents and the documents that were finally approved and are now on the PPRA website. And we will have sample presentation of 3 documents out of the 22 documents on the PPRA website, which I'm sure most of you have already downloaded. Welcome. We are now 130. That's a good number to start us off as we build up. I'm sure many more will be joining in the course of time, but it's good for us to be timeless and start on time. We know your time is valuable, so we'll take it serious right from the beginning. We want to welcome you to the ongoing peer discussion series from GPA. We started this series last year in August, where through the peer discussion presentations, starting with the PPDR of 2020, we were able to at least talk to over 850 participants who logged in through the 10 sessions that we did over the PPRA 2020. Now PPADR 2020. Now today we continue with that series by introducing the standard tender documents and formats as they have been released and uploaded on the PPRA website. I am delighted to have been to have had the opportunity to be part of the team that joined Mr. Mbuba and Mr. Joshua Wamiti in the development of these documents, plus very many other supplies practitioners and consultants. We have included in this session today our other experienced team members, Mr. Alex Mzungu and Dr. Pam Merendi, who will be joining us because they have also had experience with these documents. Today's session is not meant to delve into detail on any one of these documents, because there are very many of them. They are 22 of them. We have chosen, first of all, to take the view of an overall introduction. So you've got a framework of why these changes were necessary, what went into making it possible, and what we have now. Then we have selected three forms and documents which we'll use as examples, just to highlight the changes that have been made from the previous to the current and the advantages that those changes bring for you as practitioners. Lastly, we are pointing out to you that it is important for you to invest time in actually going through these forms, because they are current, it's what you're using now, so that you know what to do. The other point that we are making to yourselves is that we are available at GPA to assist you, either as individual organizations or as individuals. You can call in and we'll assist you as much as possible in navigating through these documents. We are not the only ones who know about these documents. Everybody is supposed to learn and work through them. So that's why we say it's a peer discussion, a collaboration between all of us, so that we improve our knowledge on these documents and the use of these documents, so that as we go forward, we can actually have better outcomes. So Mr. Mbuba will be the first to go with this presentation. Then will be followed by Joshua Wamiti, then Dr. Pam, and Alex will close in for us. You can post questions on the Q&A section. You can also make comments on the chat section. We have given some time towards the end so that we can have a live discussion where the consultants will read out the questions and answer them. Now, by the time we finish, there'll probably be very many people logged in, so it may not be possible to have a live interaction between yourselves, but we'll see how that plays out. Okay, so the best preferred mode, shoot the question under the Q&A section, and we'll try and answer it as we go along, or we'll pick it for answering it later. Lastly, we ask you to log in and register with the name as it will appear when we give you your attendance certificate, because we'll give you your attendance certificate. This session is going to last 2 hours, so we expect that you will have spent 2 hours learning. So we call that 2 CPD hours, okay? Those are not 2 CPD points, they are 2 CPD hours. The institute, our mother institute, KSM, is the one that will convert that for you when you hand over to them that certificate of attendance from ourselves. So your name needs to be the way your name is known officially, so that your certificate makes sense out of that. Mr. Mbuba, over to you now. I will ask the other consultants to switch off their mics and also switch off their cameras, so that all focus is on Mr. Mbuba and the presentation. Thank you and welcome our participants. We are now starting off at 196, which is almost 200. Welcome, Bwana Mbuba.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I think this is, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me for these sessions. As you can see from that, that's my name is Mbuba Mbongo. Now, let me start off by...
Mbuba, let's go up one slide. I purposely didn't introduce your many qualifications and your many years of experience. Kindly spend just 1 minute to share with the participants your rich experience, which makes it possible for you to have been the lead consultant in this program.
My name is Mbuba Mbongo. For those who are not who have not met before, I attended the University of Nairobi in the early 70s and qualified as a quantity surveyor. You can see there I'm registered as a member of the MAK, quantity surveying. I got a degree from University of Nairobi to enable me to get this particular qualification. And then I worked first in the City Council Building Department, then I went to the post office for another 8 years, and from there was recruited into the World Bank as a procurement specialist. And I worked there for about 24 years. Now, in the course of that time, I attended for an MSc degree in University of Liverpool. The bank considered this to be an important step, because I'm now no longer in just pure construction, but doing procurement. Let me also say here that the reason why I was picked by the World Bank is that, you know, if you are doing engineering work, like if you are an architect and you are an engineer like Chris, or you are a quantity surveyor, contracting is part of your processes. And they say in the World Bank, if you are in these disciplines, it is very easy for you to, you know, to project yourself into the procurement systems. So in the course of the 24 years I worked in many countries, I was normally responsible for project preparation, parts of every procurement, and then overseeing procurement implementations. I did a lot of training when I was in the World Bank. I returned in 2009 from Washington and relocated back to Kenya. People couldn't even understand how I can just go back to Kenya after living in such a high level country for so many years. I said, no, I have to go back to Kenya because that's where my interests are. And this is where I know a lot of people. So in short, that is what I did. For since 2009, I've been acting as a procurement consultant. I've done a lot of work and I still do work for the NDB, African Development Bank. I've also got some very big jobs now in South Africa. I work for the World Bank. I work for the European Union, and a few contracts, you know, for the Kenyan government, but very few. The major ones I do for the PPRA are normally sponsored by the GIZ, but I consider myself as working for PPRA. In short, that is who I am. My office is in Nairobi, and I think when you get into my email, you can see all my contacts. Now, let me start off by saying that as you can see there, the Kenya Constitution was changed in 2010. And when you change the Constitution, usually the Constitution asks the government to repeal several laws so that it can be reorganized to fit the new Constitution. And the Public Procurement and Disposal Act of 2005 was one of them. Therefore, its replacement with the Public Procurement Disposal of 2015 was eminent, and of course, its regulation. Now, let me say here that the reason why this was given to the PPRA is because the PPRA is the one that is mandated to prepare and issue public tender documents for use by all public procuring entities. So that is exactly why the mandate for preparing the documents was in the hands of a PPRA. I think it's good to be able to, you know, to get that. Now the reason when the law was changed, PPRA indicated that there were several omissions and there were ambiguities, and also there were some irregularities in the old, you know, documents. Therefore, PPRA decided that instead of looking at the old document and trying to amend them, because there are so many provisions that needed to be taken into account, PPRA decided that the best thing is to develop completely new standard tender documents and the formats. That is why you can see there, you know, and the formats to replace those ones which were issued under the Act of 2005. The PPRA received technical assistance from GIZ. This was not the first technical assistance from GIZ. I remember I was also involved in another technical assistance by GIZ to prepare the documents for the compliance monitoring review and also for a few other things. But I think that GIZ really did a very good job to agree to finance this particular technical assistance to facilitate the development of standard tender documents. It's an expensive exercise. For example, the meetings were very, very expensive ones, because if you really take some 30, 40 people offsite in a hotel, you can imagine how much it costs for a week. The STDs were to be compliant with the 2015 Act and its regulations. That was what was really intended. And it had to be in line with international best practices and standards. You know, in other words, even if the act left out certain things with respect to procurement practice, the documents must ensure that at least most of those things are which are in line with the best practices are included. So what I did, I say here, of course, my transparency is the consultant. Um, the consultant, I reviewed the list of the standard tender documents that were repealed, and I also got a list from the PPRA of the same documents, and they also gave me another list that they wanted to be done under to be developed under the 2015 Act. Actually, the actual number that the PPRA gave me was 41 documents. I said, seriously, I have not seen any country with 41. It is good that you give me 41, because then we had a long list from which to select those documents which were relevant. That's how we came up with a list of 21. The the standard tender documents are unbenched with the old STDs. Of course, we didn't want to lose sight of what was in the old documents, guidelines, and regulations, and also on the basis of the new law and the standard documents, or particularly of the World Bank and the African Development Bank. I looked at some of the EU documents and a few documents from a few countries, but I found that if I benchmark these documents on the old standard documents, the PPRA, and those of the World Bank and the African Development Bank, I was going to come up with a document that really meets the standards that PPRA intended. Now, I considered that reviewed information from sources regarding international acceptable and best procedures. For example, in one of the countries, I found that there was something like they say procurement must be done in a way that there is the major issue there must be something like a collective decision making. And I looked at what is this collective decision making. They say along the entire procurement process, collective decision making is very important because it is one that removes the inherent risk of unilateral decisions. And that's why I'm saying that I looked at some other processes. I conducted interviews with several institutions, including but not limited the PPRA, procuring entities at the national and county levels. I had a long discussions with the development partners like the World Bank and ADB to find out what the comments they had given in the past regarding the public procurement in Kenya. And I found that these partners had given several comments on how our system works. And I also found that every time that the government gets a loan or a credit from the World Bank or ADB, and they are writing up the credit agreement, I found that one of the things I found striking is that saying, you will follow your national laws, except there was a law, the issue, a long list of exceptions. And when I was doing this document, I say, I must try to the extent possible to make sure that when we produce our standard tender documents, these exceptions are limited to as few as possible. I also talked to some people in the professional association. I talked to some people in the AK, particularly engineers and architects. I talked to several suppliers and contractors in order to find out from them what they think are the weaknesses in the current procurement documents. It was important that I talk to the suppliers and the contractors because indeed, these are their documents. They are the ones who are going to be given these documents to work on. And that is that is the reason why it's really, and to talk to these particular parties and also to be able to get what their views are on what needs to be addressed. If I give you the comments and the list that I got from these people, you say, indeed, we have to prepare a tender document that address their concerns. Sorry, I have said already they are benchmarked there. Now, the consultant, I reported very regularly to PRA management. I didn't just sit in the office and produce these documents alone. And I also, so I was constantly in touch with the PPRI management and its donor, GIZ, during the development of these documents. So I didn't just sit in my house and produce the document and tell them, here they are. Now, the documents were subjected to PPRI committee reviews and the stakeholder validation workshop before the final versions were accepted by PPRI. Grace, you know how we were with you in the early discussions at Naivasha. I went to Naivasha maybe 4 or 5 times. Finally, we ended in Nairobi.
Yeah, I confirm I was with Mbuba in Naivasha quite a few times.
Yes.
With also Joshua. And
Yeah.
it was one of time we used to work late into the night for many days. Yeah.
Okay. Grace, you remember some of the people that came from government, and let me say this, that it was not a very simple exercise. There were people there who felt that I was diverging seriously from what they do. And if you remember, there is one time I almost got irritated a bit, but I told somebody that I was not appointed to come and legitimize what the procurement entities were doing, but to look at what the practices were and begin to develop new documents with the new outlook. And this sentiment was very accepted, and people said, okay, let's look at what you are proposing for us with an open mind, so that we can be able to tell you what is workable, what is not workable, what is not in accordance with the law and the regulations. And indeed, I got a lot of assistance from these people, because there were many things that were not, in my view, during those days. The validation workshops were very important. I don't know, Chris, you didn't attend the final ones. We held them at the, we call it with, what is this hotel near the Israeli embassy? We call it, I think, Fairview Hotel. And there we had close to about 50 people from all sorts of procurement entities, including NDB and One Bank staff, and the people from insurance industry, from all sorts of walks of life, to come and review these documents and give their comments. So in other words, I'm saying these are documents that are as a result of just simple, desk work. I carried out the assignment in accordance with the standards of ethical and with the ethics of competence, integrity, and professionalism. A lot was expected from him by PPRI and also GIZ. They said this is too important for us because it's going to be the document that are going to lead procurement processes for the future. So I provided my own manpower and facilities and everything. I was a sole source consultant, but obviously, although you contract as a sole source consultant, I had also my advisors around. I picked 2 or 3 very experienced public procurement specialists from Kenya, and I would sit in my office and talk to them until I'm sure that what I'm trying to produce and what I'm trying to say is really in accordance with what is acceptable. So finally, what was happening is that every report I wrote and every document had to be acceptable to PPRI. Now, the documents are very detailed to the extent that they are very, very detailed. Let me see what I've said here. Yeah, the documents are very detailed to the extent possible. I see you cannot put every detail there and something to the extent possible to make sure that you only keep those things that are irrelevant, or that they cover all aspects of public procurement. Now, the idea was to really, Chris, I think I discussed this very lengthily. The idea was to make sure that when you are using this document, you eliminate the inherent risk of compromise arising from unilateral decisions and also malpractices and corruption. Because when the documents are not fully detailed, people are likely to begin to interpret them in their own ways. So they can now go into malpractice and go into corruption, we are assuming that if you are using these documents and you don't follow them the way they are, you can be caught, somewhere that you have made united decisions and you have, done some malpractice. Now, the thing that I found very interesting here is that while we are talking about the documents taking into account the Public Procurement Act, I found that in making these documents, I had to take into account provisions in the national, some of the laws that are some of the laws that are applicable in Kenya. For example, I found that I had taken into account the provisions of the Competition Act of Kenya, which was not normally taken into account in the other standard documents. It is not also referred very often. It is not very much referred in the public procurement law. But the thing is, if you are asking people to compete and you don't take into account what this act really provides, you may be contravening one of the Kenya national laws. When we came to the issue of the document for the procurement of real property, which was haven't seen one country where procurement of real property is part of the procurement of goods and works. But anyway, they said here we have to prepare a document, and I found it very difficult to get samples, but I used contracts that had been entered into by the government, both locally and abroad, and I tried to, within the framework of the national procurement law, came up with a document for procurement of landed assets. I also took into account the National Construction Authority of Kenya Act, because this is a major act that guides the way the construction contracts should be done. Now, I'm just trying to emphasize there that the major issue is that the STDs remove the risk of targeted discretion in the procurement process. So if you want to do something that is contrary to the public procurement law, and you are following this document, you'll find it very difficult, to apply some targeted discretion, because you want your preferred suppliers or contractors to take the jobs. Now, let me say that what do we have now and how are they different? Now, I cannot really be able to, if I had to write and sit here and tell you exactly how these documents are different from the old ones, it would take me about several pages and maybe a few hours. But let me say that particularly the instructions to tenderers, including but not limited to the ones I put down here, are very, very elaborately prepared to make sure that they don't leave any room for discretion. Eligibility of tenderers and the eligibility of tenderers and the goods and services to be provided is very well articulated. And this is because also you will find that in the public procurement law, they are saying, when you have to make sure that you get tenderers must not come from certain countries or those who have been barred by union systems, the goods and services must be provided from certain quotas. So we have put that very clearly. For example, if you are, I see now that they are trying to put in laws to say that if you are operating in Kenya, you must have shares sold to Kenyans about 30%. That has not come yet, but what it means that if you don't have the 30% requirement, then you are not eligible. But we took into account a lot of the things that are already prevailing. Determination of responsibility, including material and other conditions, we took into account. The correction of errors has changed substantially from what it was in the old document, and the way it is applied now is it poses some difficulties, because here it says that when you correct errors, you cannot take the corrected tender sum as your tender sum, you have to keep the original tender sum. But what I found interesting is that it says that if the error is too big, the evaluator must determine whether the error is too big, and if it is too big, you should be able to reject the tender. I found it very difficult to be able to draft this particular clause for the entities to be able to say you still have to correct errors. You have to sit down and decide whether the error is substantive or not substantive. Now, the reason why I was talking about collective decision making is that if this is done by a committee, then it means that when the committee decides that there is substantive, it is not one person who has decided it is substantive. Because when you say substantive, it means you are really throwing out a tender. The tender may be looking on the face of it very, very good. Now, the margin of preference in the current law is very, very confused, and I found it was very difficult for somebody reading that document to decide how you apply the margin of preference and also the reservation. There was a little bit of confusion as to how you can make a difference between what is margin of preference and what are reservation. Now, in the tender document, you have put it very clearly, this is what is margin of preference, and this was as reservation. This is reserved contract for women enterprises, small SMEs, and the disabled. Now, I identified something in the law or a law, a regulation regarding abnormally low tenders, abnormally high tenders. I put it in there, and I made the members understand that it's not there, but this is good practice. And this is the way it works. If tenderers give you a very low tender and you take it, there are very big risks that the tenderer may never finish the contract. If you receive very abnormally high tenders, then the question is, if the tenders are very high, it means there is something wrong. Either the procurement plan was giving you the wrong estimates, or the tenderers have colluded and they have decided that the lowest tender must be higher than the norm. I was giving you, Chris, an example that if the cost estimate, the procurement plan says that this tender is about, say, 1,000 shillings, and you find that the lowest tender is 1,500, 50% higher, then you have to look at it and say, here, there is something wrong. Either the tenderers have colluded, or the person who was preparing the procurement plan was wrong, or the person who did the cost estimates is wrong. But this is a case where the procurement entity must really look at what is causing these low tenders and abnormally high tenders, because if you award a contract in a case where the tender is abnormally high, then you are not getting value for money. I had also to look at the issues about an imbalance of front-loaded tenders to make sure that this is taken into account a little bit better than it was in the other document. Now, evaluation of tenders and the criteria for award is a very, very lengthy process there. You'll find every document has got its own section 3. I'm talking later about, I'm just about section 3. And then there was also a little bit more work to be done on the issue of the standstill period. This is now the particular attention was paid to section 3, evaluation. I'll talk to you later. Now, particular attention should be paid to section 3, evaluation qualification criteria. Now, this is what really demonstrates whether the contracting has been done with due care to, to all the things that are put in the tender documents. So, in a way, this is what I did and what we did. Let me say this is what we did, and I say that let me repeat myself and say this is what not Ambungu's desk exercise. This is an exercise that involved many people and many consultations. Now, I've got a few general observations that I'm saying here that once this criteria is followed, there is really no need for a second opinion on evaluation and contract award, because it's either done correctly or not done correctly. So the question of asking somebody else to give an opinion on whether this is okay or not okay, he can only be able to say whether the evaluation has done in accordance with the document or not in accordance with the document. Now, if the STDs are to be applied by these STDs are to be applied by well-trained procurement specialists, so that you make sure that the tender documents do not lead to improper evaluations, and so that the contract award does not lead to any form of compromise. I have some general observations. They are clear that the documents are too detailed and bulky. I said, yes, they are bulky and detailed, because that is the nature of public procurement, to eliminate risk. And I just give an example here and say that public procurement, the way it is administered now, is like public procurement law that should be on the basis of well-articulated documents. Because if you don't articulate these things properly, people will take advantage, and you do what some of the procurement entities are doing. Like you saw what has happened now, and the people who are buying, goods for the COVID issues. The documents are to be applied by well-trained procurement professionals. This is not a document for non-professionals, because if you don't do it this way, there will be problem. So I'm saying they have to be well-trained procurement professionals who would have no problems in understanding every professional in the STD. I'm saying here, if you are really a procurement professional, there should be no problem for you to understand how this document is structured, what the provisions are about. But if you are not, you look at it and get scared before even going. Therefore, for me, I would really recommend that training at all levels for public and private sectors, because the contractors and suppliers must also be able to understand these documents, because they are the ones who are given them, and they are the ones who are supposed to complete them and submit their tenders.
I want to thank you very much for giving us that overview. Fellow practitioners, this is really a very small part. We would have wanted Buba to go on for a full hour, as it was, so that he can elaborate many of the things that he gathered, especially the new things and the disadvantages we have suffered using the old documents. But as it were, due to the limited amount of time, this is only an intro. Mr. Mbuva will be available with us in due course, and he'll answer questions in this session or in subsequent sessions. Mr. Mbuva is here to give back. Mr. Mbuva could have retired in Washington in those tall towers, and he could have even bought a farm in Texas, but he chose to come back here in the Meru Islands. So he's really here. He will be here with us for a while, and his passion is in helping this country and this region and the practitioners. He feels very passionately about the work, and very often he says, Chris, I am just giving back. And really, I'm not misrepresenting him. That is his position. He's giving back, and he'll be here. This is a good way for him to put back all the experience he has gathered from many countries through this document. So, Banambuba, we want to thank you. Please stay on. Now, we want to welcome Joshua. Joshua from Kigali, can you? Joshua will be taking us through document number 5. Again, just a high level Kionjo 2 due to time limits, but then we will again be with Joshua in subsequent sessions. Joshua, we can hear you. We can hear you. Please continue.
Thank you, engineer. I don't need much introduction, as you have introduced me well. We were working with the lead consultant from 2018, actually, up to now. This is when we are realizing the fruits of our labor, which we are very happy. Indeed, the delay was because we were waiting for the 2020 regulations, because the documents are supposed to be aligned with the Constitution, as Bumba said, the Act, the regulations, and even the best practices. So currently, I work with the East African community. I'm based in Kigali. I'm their procurement, senior procurement officer. Of course, I'm a KISM member and licensed, and I'm also a CIPS chartered member. This is I'll handle the standard document for proposals for consulting firms. It is number 5. That is the cover. That is the cover page. Now, if you compare the old document with the new, the old document for consultancies, for firms, not individuals, for firms, it had 76 pages, printed matter, 76 pages, and this one has 124 pages. As Bumba said, people are complaining that it's very voluminous, but you'll see that it is not as we go along. It's just improvements, because there are 2 cover pages. There's the other 2 pages for table of content. And then the next 20 pages, they are just guidelines for persons preparing either the request for expression of interest or RFP directly, because you can do either way as per our law and regulation. And then there is the preface of PPRA explaining how and why and how. Those who have downloaded this particular document, you can see that. Then there's a sample of request for expression of interest. Then there are guidelines for preparing the shortlisting, including all those evaluation criteria and so on. And even it is very comprehensive, because it is even indicating, giving you the template for individual and consolidated scoring and summaries, strengths and weakness. But kindly note, there's a separate and comprehensive standard PPRA template for evaluating consultants. That is document number 22 in the website. Yeah, and then guidelines for preparing the request for proposal. So all these are 20 pages of that document of 124 pages. And I'm saying this guidance should be removed. Actually, there is that statement. So the actual document to be issued to the bidders is actually starting from page 24. That is where the real document to be sent to bidders or consultants are starting. And it is starting of section 1, the request for proposal, what we normally say invitation in bids in goods and services. Then there are instructions to consultants, 2A and 2B. And 2B is a data sheet. The whole of that is 21 pages. Then there is a technical proposal standard forms. They are taking 15 pages of that document. And I have listed them there. The technical proposal submission form, it was there. What I'm putting green, it means it was there in the old document, but now it's more comprehensive. So technical submission, proposal submission form is more comprehensive. It was a small item in the old document. Then certificate of independence proposal determination. This was not there in the old act, but Competition Act of, I think, 2015, or I don't remember the year. It requires this certificate, so that, as Bumba said, it discourages collusion and other unfair competition practices, which has been very rife, as you know, as practitioners. Then from Tech 2, concerns the organization experience, 3 comments and suggestions, 5 work schedule and planning for delivery. All these were there. but they have been drafted better with the, best practices. Form text 6, team composition, assignment, and key inputs. Form text 6B, CV is it's better. Actually, I dare to say that just looks like even the East African documents, because ours were also benchmarked against World Bank and others. Then form text 7, mandatory support documents. This one has been consolidated and you can add more. This forms the preliminary or eligibility criteria. I don't need to, list all of the, as you can see there. Then form text 8, self-declaration forms. There are 3 of them. These were not there as forms, standard forms in the old document, although ITT or ITC were just intimating them, yeah? Like the form to declare that you are not bad, you're not engaged in corruption and fraud, and you'll commit to the suppliers code of ethics. As you know, PPRA has got a suppliers code of ethics, yeah, separate from the code of ethics of procurement entities staff. So, and these are like affidavits, they are serious. If you go against this, there are consequences. Then form text 9 is tender security declaration form. If you look at regulation 46 and regulation 155.2, it is saying that this is for small, micro, medium, and disadvantaged enterprises because they are not supposed to have bid bonds or tender security. But best practices in the world, you're not supposed to demand tender security for consultancies, whether they are small, micro, or even big companies. In EAC, we don't, AU, we don't, and others. That's the best global practices. So in my opinion, that's why I'm saying, what about large enterprise? This will serve all the enterprises because you are not supposed to ask for tender security for consultancies. But for goods, works, and non-consulting services, yes. So this one will serve all bidders, although those regulations are talking about small, micro, medium, and disadvantaged enterprises. Then section 4, remember this is section 1, 2, 3. Then section up to there, they have 10 forms, sorry. Then section 4 is the financial proposal standard forms. There are 7 pages. So there's financial proposal submissions form. That one was in the old document. All these were in the old document, but now they are better. Then section 5 are terms of reference, outline to guide the people preparing the documents, what should be included in the terms of reference. Then section 6, there is preference to conditions of contract. This is one page which should be removed because it is guiding you who is preparing. As Bumba said, you must be a professional, and the documents are helping you to prepare. So the pages advising you like this one should be removed. And then under that section 6, there is the form of contract for lump sum way of contracting. There are 2 ways, lump sum and time-based. We have no time to go in details, but the upcoming trainings, we shall learn about that. So there is that form, it is 2 pages. Then there is a GCC for the same lump sum, 10 pages. Section 8, special conditions for lump sum, again 6 pages. Then section 9 is the appendices. After now, negotiation and everything. The agreed description of service, in other words. There is a final negotiated terms of reference, appendix B, key experts, C, remuneration, and so on and so forth. Then section 10 is the notification forms. Now, in the old document, there was no notification of intention to award. In the old dispensation, we were just sending notification of award, and then we wait for at least the 14 days for appeal or anything. Now we have the new document has separated into two. There is a notification of intention to award. This will be sent to all the bidders. It is 2 to 3 pages. Of course, when you are sending to the recommended consultant to be awarded, you have to modify, and you shall learn more in the practical trainings. You shall learn more, and then it has to be different from that template. Has to be modified to be different from those who are unsuccessful. Then, after the standstill period, now that you issue the notification of award together with the draft negotiated contract with the successful bidder, is one contract, is the one page actually. Then beneficial ownership disclosure form is a new form required under Companies Act 2015 to show who are the eventual beneficiaries from that transaction or from that tender. So anything I'm putting in green is the new developments in the new document. Now, that is for lump sum. If you go for time-based contract, section 7 and 8 have also been provided, starting with a preference, which I'm saying should be removed. If you are not going time-based contract option, there are these 13 pages that should be removed. That's why I'm saying you understand at the end that it is not such a big document. Actually, I have calculated here to console those who are saying it's big. You are supposed, if you are going to do lump sum contracting, for example, there are a total of 36 pages to be removed. So if you minus that 124 pages from 36, you are remaining with 90 pages, and the old document was 76 pages. As you can see, the real increment of the page is 14. So as Bumba said, if you are not a professional, you are not conversant with professional preparation in the old regime, that is only when you will find it difficult in the old one. Now, what are the other improvements? As Bumba said, eligibility and mandatory criteria, data sheet and special condition of contract. They are very comprehensive. They are like 3 pages each. Data sheet and SCC. They are more and comprehensive than the old one. Then unfair competition advantage is prohibited as per the Competition Act, as we have said, and that is why there is this form of beneficial. I mean, that is why there is this form. Let me go back. That is why there is this form here to be filled, because unfair competition practices like collusion and so on, bid leaking, has been prohibited. Then, as Buba said, mechanism of correction of errors. The law absolutely forbids, and the regulations, and even the review board, even the courts, high court, and even the cases that have gone to the court of appeals, the law absolutely forbids changing the total cost for goods, works, and services, or unit costs in consultancies. Absolutely. So I want you to concentrate on this one, as Bumba explained the provision that has been put. In my opinion, there is a mechanism of correction of errors on quantities of inputs in technical vis-a-vis what financial proposal are proposing. And the provision is that you can correct the errors on quantities in the financial proposal so that it matches with the technical, but you don't touch prices, unit cost of the items. That one you cannot touch it because the law prohibits. So, but I was thinking which should take precedent. Is this a technical proposal or financial proposal as far as prices are concerned? Maybe we can debate more on that. Then treatment of abnormally low or high prices. You know that our act and regulation were concentrated too much on high prices because of our history. People have been just colluding to put high prices and it's part of corruption. So they forgot, the drafters of the law, or even as prices, we forgot to provide for abnormally low, because abnormally low prices are as bad as high prices, because particularly for special groups, they normally quote abnormally low prices and they are not able to perform. So you'll be wasting time. So much as the law is not providing that or regulation, where the law and regulations are quite silent, you are allowed to adapt best practices, like World Bank and so on. Like World Bank regulation 5.65 and 5.66, you can refer to that. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you'll be wasting time. PEs have been complaining about abnormally low prices. Now, details on financial negotiation, very nicely put for ransom and time-based contracts. And those 4 methods, because as we shall learn more, these 4 methods are the only methods under consultancy that you are allowed to negotiate the price, not the other 3. And we shall learn what the other 3 are. They are in our act. Now, market survey for regulated services, like those sections, is very well put. What about non-regulated services, or those consultant services that are not regulated by an act of parliament? What about that? Like as intimated under section regulation 128 2B. Yeah. So for market survey, it is for all, because we are not supposed to award rates that are above market price, whether they are regulated, because for regulated services, they have those rates from their professional body, like law and architectures and others. That one you can easily refer to those guidelines. What about those that are not regulated, but they are consultancies? So the market survey should also guide that, much as you don't have those reference documents. Now, what I've put in red is the input that will be required from the PEs, particularly you, the professionals. Now, standard document for individual consultants is missing. But if you look at the regulations 2020, it should be number 8. In the schedule that is giving the standard documents that should the PPRA should issue, it's number 8 in that list in the regulations. It's schedule number 7 or schedule number 8. So, but when you look at this document in the preface, PPRA are saying that PEs should adapt a simpler document. Maybe you customize this or you adapt another one. Which we found it might be problematic. So we still expect PPRA to issue a standard document for individual consultants. Like in EAC, for example, we have both. We have for firms and for individual. And the individual one is very simplified. Yeah. So it is number 8, and PPRA will look on that issue. Then margins of preference and reservation scheme, as Bumba said, this is a requirement in law and regulation and the constitution. So whether the review board cases, if you look at some of them, they have ruled that even if you have not put these provisions in your bid document, the evaluation committee must apply them, because it is constitutional and legal requirement. So even if you skip them, and the clever, the wise, or the this informed consultants discovers that you have not provided, they can either complain to you, or they go to PPRA or go to review board to say that you have not provided for preference and particularly preference, margins of preference, because the reservation is for one particular group. They compete against each other. If you are not provided the margins of preference, you will be challenged and you have to provide it. Particularly this one for 20% additional score for citizen contractors or those with at least 51% of shares under section 86(2). So for Kenyans, you should add 20%, provided they have scored the minimum score. If minimum score is 70, you either add 20 to be 90, or you deduct 20 from other non-Kenyans to have less with the 20. So these are some of the things we will need practical training to do. Then application of competitive negotiations on consultancies. Competitive negotiations is not only for goods, works, and services. It can also be applied in consultancies, as section 131B of the Act says, and the NANS schedule. Now, but the assumption here, when you are applying competitive negotiation, is that the budget estimates of the PE, as Mr. Buba was saying, is realistic. Because if it is not realistic, nobody will be quoting above with 25%. It will be 100%, 200%. And then, before you apply this competitive negotiation, we are talking about the market survey. You will have to be assured that the rest quoted are within the market range. Because if they are not, you should reject such during financial evaluation. Because market prices do not only apply to goods, works, and services, even consultancies. Now, post-qualification due diligence criteria and process will have to be determined by you, the professionals. E.g., under Regulation 82B, yeah, for it's talking about consultancies. So that one you have to input. You have to use your professional knowledge and the trainings that are upcoming, because some consultancies can be really complicated and high value. So you cannot just finish with the desk evaluation. Sometimes you have to do diligence even on those. Then unbundling of services as required under Regulation 154, even consultancy services can be unbundled to be given to different individuals or firms. You have to provide for that. Then price adjustment formula has to be determined by the PE. The document has mentioned it, but the formula itself, you have to, determine. E.g., the Regulation 105, for example. And then the document is talking about 18 months. You can adjust the formula after 18 months, but the regulation, section 139(3) and 4 is talking about 12 months. That is when you can change the prices, not before 12 months. But the document is talking about 18 months. So it has to be discussed or be clarified. Which one do we go with? What the document is providing 12 months, or what the document is saying for 18 months. But of course, the law and the regulation takes precedence. So those are some of the things on this screen that you are expected as practitioners, people who will come for training and so on, to guide. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Joshua. We are delighted that we got a fantastic connection throughout your presentation. Joshua has actually presented the brief on procurement of consultancy firms in a manner that casts where we've come from, the review that Banam Buba and teams did, versus where we are going. That's the new documents, by highlighting some of the key differences that you are beginning to observe, improvements, and making things better. But Joshua, of course, in his usual way, if you follow him on his comments, even in our social groups, he's very questioning. So he's also brought out some things that need to be discussed among practitioners, even when they are presented here, what we think of them. Are we going with this idea, or is it challenged in a manner that it needs further improvement? Those are the things that we need to discuss, and very often we can't discuss it online. That's why it says when we actually do have a sit down, then we can actually ask ourselves, do we follow 12 months as per the act? Do we follow 18 months as per these forms? You know, so really those are some of the things that we will need to be discussing. As Mbuba said, these are things for cross the desk discussion and training. But before those trainings come, these forms are already active and they're here, and you need to actually start getting into them. And that's why Joshua has made a point of demystifying that these forms are not any longer than the previous ones we had. They are actually, in a way, helping you by having a lot of guidance that we have built into sections on what to do. Then you remove those guidance and then continue with the empty forms that you're supposed to fill the gaps. We are going through this now. We will invite Dr. Pam. Dr. Pam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Dr. Pam, we can see you clearly. Thank you, Joshua. Hang in there, Joshua, because we are seeing many questions that we like to address with also Mbuba. Pam, do you want to share your screen?
Thank you, host, and thank you, participants. Welcome to this session.
Dr. Pam, I didn't introduce you because I thought they already know you.
You did.
Pam is one of our known lecturers and practitioners. She's also quite known to many SPs as a consultant who is available to assist. She does a lot of work on assistance, giving back to the society, especially for the young practitioners, so that they are not lost in the documentation in what they are doing. And we are very delighted that she's one of the GPA partner consultants. So Pam is going to take us through one particular document that is very popular, yeah? The standard request for quotation document. So Pam, give us your highlights on this document before we go into detailed trainings in the days to come.
Thanks, host. And thank you, participants, for finding time to join today's class. We are delighted to have you on board. The two consultants have given us an overview of how the development of the standard bidding documents was done. And Director Joshua has taken us through an overview of the standard document for requests for proposals for selection of consulting firms. I'm going to take you through an overview of the standard document for requests for quotations. And that is how the standard document looks like. It's document number 21 as provided for by PPRA, and the title is Standard Quotation Document for Procurement, Request for Quotations for Small Contracts for Works, Goods, and Non-Services. To start with that title, I think the title is not coming out clearly, and going forward, we will recommend that that title is amended and it should read like Standard Request for Quotations Document for Procurement of Works, Goods, and Non-Consulting Services for Small Contracts. So the title is not very clear. Non-services meaning what? It should be non-consulting services. Initially, from the year 2005 up to last week, we've been using a request for quotations, which is one-paged. It's one page, in fact, it's 2 pages. It has the base value where the procuring entity puts its name and the name of the bidder, and then the requirements in that table in terms of what is required, the item description, the unit of issue, the quantity, unit price, and maybe total price, and then country of origin of the goods that are being supplied. The current request for quotations document is a bit detailed. It has 21 pages, and the preliminary pages provides the guidelines on how to prepare the request for quotations document. And therefore, as Joshua was putting it, those instructions, whenever you are sending out the request for quotation document, you remove those instructions. So if they are removed, then the document will remain like 12 pages, I think. The standard request for quotations document has 3 parts, and the first part is instructions to bidders, and part 2 is on the schedule of requirements, and part 3 is on the contract. These ones were there in the old request for quotation document, which was a 2-page, and in fact, when you go to the PPRA website, you don't find it as one of the standard bid documents that were provided by them. So this document has those 3 parts, and the first part, which is on the instructions to tenderers, provides for some clauses that are very significant. There are many, but I picked the ones which are very significant, and that is tender eligibility, goods eligibility, technical specifications, quotations currency, evaluation of quotations, and award of contract. Under eligibility of the tenderers, they are required to provide documentary evidence for them to be able to be evaluated and then be awarded a contract. And that criteria is a valid trading license, certificate of registration of the business, a valid tax compliance certificate for the previous year, and which should be current, in fact, and then AGIPO certificate where it's applicable, where you are giving business to the, say, to the special groups. And there are a number of forms that the bidders need to fill. One of it is the conflict of interest in relation to the procurement. And that form has been provided there, which was not there initially in the other standard request for quotations document. Another instruction to bidders is goods eligibility, and bidders are supposed to provide documentary evidence to show the country of origin of the goods that they are going to supply. And another thing is on evaluation of quotations, and the quotations are supposed to be evaluated in 3 stages. In fact, it's going to be like the normal evaluation of tenders. However, evaluation of tenders takes us to another stage, which is post-qualification, where you conduct a due diligence. But for the quotations, the instructions are that they'll be subjected to a 3-stage evaluation. The preliminary evaluation, they'll be looking at the eligibility criteria that I've talked about. Technical examination will be looking at the eligibility of goods and whether they comply to the technical specifications and the commercial responsiveness in terms of what the procuring entity had provided. Then the financial comparison, of course, you are looking at the prices of the bidders so that you can be able to get the lowest evaluated or the lowest responsive bidder who will be recommended for award. Another instruction is on technical specifications, and we say that the bidders are now required to provide documentary evidence to show that the goods comply with the specifications provided. This was not initially there in the request for quotations bid standard document, which has been incorporated now, and this is a good thing because it's going to enable procuring entities be able to have a comprehensive response from the bidders. Another instruction is on currency. This current document allows quotations to be given in foreign currency, and that currency will be converted into Kenyan shilling for purposes of evaluation. And once converted, they will be used to using the Central Bank of Kenya selling exchange rate of the date of opening of the quotations. So this is for purposes of evaluation. And when it comes to contract award, the instructions are that contract of award will be by placement of a letter of acceptance or RPO. And the currency of award and payment shall be the currency in which the quotation was submitted. And therefore, it provides that when award is done, the unsuccessful tenderers who responded to the request for quotations will also be notified of the quotation that was accepted, indicating the name and the amount of the accepted quotation. Initially, there were no instructions whether procuring entities could notify the unsuccessful bidders of quotations about whether they were successful or not and indicating who was successful. But now it's a requirement that they have to be notified which quotation was successful, who was successful, and at what amount. that is to be done, and that now gives a lot of work to the procurement office. Whenever they're conducting procurement using requests for quotations, bidders must be notified of the results. Another element of the request for quotations is on the quotations and the qualification criteria, and this is what we call schedule of requirements. The forms have been provided, and the form of quotation must be filled by the bidders as it was initially. The schedule of requirements was not there initially. It has been provided, and it has two tables. There's table A and table B. And table 1 is where the procurement unit will fill in the description of the items that are being procured, the quantity that is required. Then the bidder will fill in the unit price and the total price columns. For table 2, the bidder will have to demonstrate conformity to the technical specification. Therefore, that will be used for technical evaluation to see whether whatever the supplier is intending to supply conforms with what the procuring entity requires. Then part 3 provides contract agreement. This one was not there in the old template of request for quotation. However, it has been provided. That template has some conditions of contract, and they include the contract language, eligibility of goods, the notices governing law, the settlement of disputes, suppliers' responsibilities, the contract price, inspection and tests and warranty. And I thought this was not comprehensive because even the date of delivery should also be included there, so that it makes that form of contract comprehensive. So whenever we are doing procurement using request for quotation standard document, we should ensure that that form of contract or agreement is used. Looking at the whole request for quotations document, there are some areas of improvement that we could recommend to the authority. And number 1, we start from the title of the document, the cover page. The cover page reads that the document is for standard quotation document for procurement, request for quotations for small contracts for works, goods, and non-services. As I said, it should read standard request for quotations document for works, goods, and non-consulting services. So that is the first area of improvement on this document. And as we go through this document, it muchly caters for supply of goods and very little on procurement of works. So we could be recommending that the authority should enhance this document to cater for works or develop one for works. There's a document that is provided for small works, but small works cannot be to a tune of 5 million. I don't know whether that is what they're looking at, but if we are going to use this request for quotations for small works, then it should be enhanced. Since bidders have never used this document and there are a number of forms to be filled, there will be required a number of sessions for them to be able to appreciate the request for quotations document to enable them be able to participate. As procuring entities, whenever we are using this document, we need to ensure that bidders understand how to fill this document so that we can be able to obtain maximum participation. When it comes to contract award, there's a statement that is provided that award will be through placement of a letter of acceptance or LPO. And I want to appreciate that letter of acceptance is not appropriate as it does not constitute a contract. So in that statement should be deleted. And then we will be seeing that it should be through the placement of an LPO or through a contract. And we should make clear the flow of the document in the sense that the document has the forms in between the quotational form and those forms which are being filled. I thought that the flow of that document should be reorganized in that these forms like the disclosure of interest, the certificate of independent quotation determination, self-declaration form, and the foreign tender in terms of 40% rule should be an annex at the end. So that there is a good flow of the document to make it easier for bidders to be able to fill the document. And I recommend that the document should include the delivery period, not only in the contract document, but also in that schedule of requirements so that procuring entities can be able to indicate their expected delivery periods, and then suppliers can also indicate when they are able to supply those items that are required. And since this is not a huge area of procurement, that is the end of that presentation. And I want to take ourselves back to the host so that we can move to the next session on the document for small works. Thank you, host.
Thank you, Dr. Pam. This, as you are aware, is actually one of the most popular documents that we use all the time, most of the time. We will pay great attention to it during the full-scale discussions and presentations, but you're allowed to ask questions. But we thought, let's just start with a few documents that normally we use so that we see how do these documents sit now, what improvements are there, and what are we going to do with them going forward. But as Joshua and Pam, who are your regular practitioners, have actually said, we'll have lengthier sessions where we will tackle these documents together. Now, I think Alex is prepared to share. Alex, can you share your slide? Alex is a practitioner. He's got a wealth of experience, and also he's a lecturer. He's a consultant, a trainer, and he's here today to share with us on one particular document so that we see from those 3 samples, what do these 22 documents actually look like? So that it also prepares you when you go into the PPRA website, what are you going to look for? And when you come to training later with GP or anywhere else, what are you going to look for again? So Alex, over to you. Please share from the procurement for small works, document number 3.
Thank you, host, and thank you, consultants, fellow consultants on board, and professional colleagues who have managed to spare time so that we can discuss 1 or 2 issues on the new standard tender documents. My name is Aso. I have met with most of you. The beauty is that I have come last, and my document is about small works. So I'll also present small work, but I'm very confident. I managed to join when Joshua was doing his bit. I know our senior Mbumba did it quite well. And so mine is just now to put in a little bit of the cleaning the dusts. So the document is number 3. And this is basically critical areas that I have tried to lift. Remember, we are all reading the documents as they were sneaked on the website by the regulator. And if the representative from the regulator is on board, kindly tell them that don't sneak things that can kill people where they can see. So this is your old document. This is where we are. And so the title is Standard Tender Document for Procurement of Small Works. And the version is February 2021. Looking at the old document, we learned that the legal framework under which it was prepared was the Act of 2005 and Regulations 2006, now repealed. It talked about, it referred to the documents as standard tender documents, but in brackets, that old version talked of SBD. I believe this is where the rain started beating us. And then we see that this old document, it was procured for, it was prepared for use by PEs and purposely through national competitive bidding procedures. And it had put a caveat on the value of contracts under which these procedures could be applied. That was placed at 200. Again, still looking at the old version, we see that specific details were supposed to be furnished in the invitation to tender and the contract data sheet where applicable. So where you give such information to procurement guys, they will always emphasize where applicable, and so they will not put, unlike the new version, it requires you to ensure that you put in the data in the specific areas, as we will be revealing shortly. Again, the old document does not mention anything on special conditions for the contract, but it is elaborate on the instruction to tenderers and the general conditions. So you see that where you are not prepared on how to prepare that section, it becomes a challenge. So when it comes to, or when we come to the new document, the legal framework that is applicable is the Act of 2015, regulations of 2020, and you are actually required that you can use it for open, limited, and restricted competitive tendering methods. So that is a change from the previous one. The version is February, and then there is no international competition that is expected under this procedure. So again, it tells you when you are using this document, then ensure it is for RAS local. Again, we see that the standard tender document now have allowed, and they are expressed on use of or allowing JV, joint venture, and they have clearly instructed you that as you issue instructions to these guys, you only allow 2 to 3 JV members, not a group of 20. Again, there is a way forward on abnormally low or high tenders, and benchmark should be on the PE's estimate. So I know somebody has asked about what is abnormally low or high tenders. When you talk of abnormally low tenders, you consider it in view of the procuring entity's estimate, and the estimate is your budget. Say your budget was 10 million and a contractor or a tenderer has bid 2 million. That is considered abnormally low. Whereas if the budget is 10 million and one of the tenderers has bid or has quoted 20 million, that is considered very high, abnormally high. So again, now you have been directed on what to do. There is also a discussion on the procurement of works, and we use ad measurement. When you use ad measurement, it means that you are considering correctly unit price or unit rates. So this should be purposely out to take care of where there are errors or where there are challenges in calculating subtotals and overall or the grand total. So your basis of payment will normally be through ad measurement, use of unit price. Hence, you now are being told how to treat those minor and major deviations. Again, the document, the new document, all these we are discussing are not anywhere in the old document. So the new document also is allowing use of lump sum contracts, where the concept of activity schedules is used, and that enables payment to be made on basis of a percentage completion of each activity. So if you are looking at probably an activity called the formworks, or you want just to pay a percentage of the roofing, then you can always pay a percentage. This was not the case before. We are lucky the new standard tender document does not specify the threshold. Remember, the older one had specified up to 200 million. So this one does not. Again, we see that during the preparation of the tender document, you are required to specify whether it is an international tender, which again, you have been guided properly. Again, Joshua talked of margin of preference, reservation, whether it is through a pre-qualification, whether you are allowing for alternative tenders, and then the requirement for Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. Alternative tenders means that as they bid, they may give you the first bid and the second bid. And so now you have been aligned. In the old dispensation, that was not allowed. Again, emphasis, you are now told that do not make any changes on the section referring to invitation to tenderers and the GCC. But there are sections where you must at least modify. So we have now the data sheets and the special conditions of the contract. And then we see that on the cover page, we have the preface, the guidelines, and notes. That should not be part of the tender document. So you are told that the first pages, that goes up to page 11, remove them and now put your logo after that. So delete the earlier pages and it is clearly mentioned. Page 9, I think this should be page 9, not 11, sorry. And then again, we see that the standard, this standard tender document is talking about a project manager, and this project manager may be substituted with a person called an architect if the contract is for building works, or that project manager may be an engineer if the contract is for civil engineering works. So you are clearly now informed who the project manager should be and for what works. On some guidelines on how to prepare your document, I felt sorry for our profession, because if you went and checked on this section, we are told that it should be prepared by a quantity surveyor or an architect. I don't know how that comes in place. Maybe this is a story for another day, but then we are now clearly informed on how to calculate the tender security and how to calculate the minimum amount of financial resources required. And so what I have put in red is what comes in as a new to do. And then again, people have been asking, how do we calculate the annual turnover? And you can now see it is normally 2.50 of the estimated cost of the contract. So very straightforward. And then again, there's the issue of the amount of money required for specific experience. And we see normally the minimum amount required is about 80% of the cost of the contract. The old document had never come out clean on how to make these calculations, though this new one says that this responsibility should be done by the engineer. We need to add there and inform the regulator that it should be done by the engineer, the QS, and the procurement person. So we see that the old document had 11 sections. The new one has got the first part covering ITT, and then there's an appendix, and then there are guidelines, which I have already shared with you. And then there are 3 parts having 10 sections in total. So the 3 parts, we have got the first part, which is now known as the tendering procedures, and there it is clearly highlighted. And then the second part is the work requirements or the procurement entities requirements. And this is your business. You must endeavor to input. And then part 3 talks of conditions of the conditions of contract and the contract forms. And clearly you can see that we have the GCC, we have the SCC, and the contract forms. Again, the new document has covered in detail the following areas. Eligibility of tenderers and goods to be provided is clearly covered. And then there's determination of who is responsive. And again, non-material conformity is also covered. Just to throw more light again on correction of arithmetic errors and margin of preference applications, and then evaluation of the tenders, abnormally low tenders, unbalanced or front-loaded, and then award criteria being the lowest evaluated. And then it clearly discusses the standstill period where you have only one tender being submitted. Standstill period will not be allowed. So when it comes to the evaluation qualification criteria, we note that your award should be towards substantially responsiveness to the bidding document and the lowest evaluated cost. Those are the issues that will be the determinant factor. Then we have the old tender document has section 9 showing the tender forms, whereas in the new document, it is in section 10. You are reminded by the regulator that if you have any issues, please provide feedback. So we don't know if we should use the documents and provide feedback or stop there, review the documents and provide feedback. My opinion as a professional is that yes, the document is quite elaborate, quite including other procedures around the world. But then we note that this document must be aligned to the Constitution of Kenya, Article 227, and other statutes that play as we deliver on the procurement procedures. So that was the brief that I actually managed to lift. But as my host has said, and my fellow consultants, more will be coming. Stay online and watch for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. I never tire to listen to Alex because he always challenges and he makes everything look so easy when some of us actually swear through the forms. So Alex, stop making us feel guilty, you know? The difference between Alex,
my host.
The difference between Alex and many of us, I'm speaking for many practitioners, is that Alex is also actually a lecturer. So sometimes is, you know, the frequently asked questions. So they're just in the top of the mind of Alex, of Pam, of Joshua and a few others. They're just there because they have answered this question like 10 times before. Alex, thank you very much. This brings us to the next session, but let me hasten to say that this is actually a peer discussion session. And the way I've seen questions being asked, please continue to ask them. Consultants, we have done very well. We've got about 20 minutes to finish the session. Now, I think this is a good opportunity for us to answer questions. Let me ask Jeremiah's question, okay? Jeremiah, I'd like to know if the review of these STDs has been made in consultation with IFMIS to allow for easy implementation. Has there been a cross-linkage between these documents, the processes they prefer, and the IFMIS process the IFMIS tool to ensure that there is easy implementation? Which of you wants to take that?
Well, I think I can take it.
Okay, Mbuba.
Now, we discussed very briefly about the role of IFMIS is normally financial recording systems, IFMIS. But what we found is that we do not have a very clear definition of e-procurement. So if you want, and this is a system that is still under development, and I consulted with all the officials concerned, they said the e-procurement system is not yet completed in Kenya. But now IFMIS itself is more of recording transactions and all the things that take place. For example, when you award contracts, they should be picked by IFMIS. There is a system for picking this information through IFMIS. When you award a contract and you become transparent to see who has been awarded and who has lost, there is a way that IFMIS should be able to catch this. But this is not something that we could really specify in the documents, because the document is simply for the supplier or contractor. Are we together?
Yeah.
This document is for the supplier and the contractor to be able to come to a situation. You say, Grace has been awarded this contract for building this road at so much money. Now, once that information is available to the PE, it will now be picked by their IFMIS systems. But the document is purely for making sure that you get to an extent where you say, this is the contract awarded to so and so by this procuring entity. But we wanted also to produce something in the tender document to do with e-procurement, but we couldn't be able to do it because and the PPRI and all the other government officials confirmed that indeed the e-procurement is still the work on the show floor.
And I think we have seen in the recent past communication with regard to a massive tender to upgrade and redo the IFMIS so that it's a more integrated system to capture some of the procurement features. Okay, what is the scientific approach to calculating abnormally low, abnormally high, something to justify against? I think I had this question being covered quite well with our senior Mbuba. But Mbuba, can you just touch on it very briefly, because I know you touched on it. Ludwika is asking the same again. Do we have a scientific approach to calculating abnormally low or abnormally high figures?
Chris, this is a very interesting situation, and I think we discussed things over and over. We said, if you do you do the correction of errors,
yeah,
right? And then you say this, and the tender is supposed to be based on a certain estimate. The thing is, we want to make sure that the procurement entities don't just put in their procurement plans figures dreamt from nowhere, right? So we are saying to the entities, your estimate of the contract must be as exact as possible. And in one of the seminars, I said, the only person who can make a proper estimate is the person who is conversant with it. If it's a road and engineer, combined with the procurement people, if it's good procurement people. So the basis, the starting point should be the cost estimate. Now, tender evaluation is a committee. And I said, the whole idea in the procurement is that there must be some kind of collective decision making. So you sit down as a committee and you say the tender was 10 shillings. And we see that there are some people who are 15, others are 8, right? You want to say plus or minus, right? There is something I also put in the preface regarding to how the committee should be coming to grips with this particular matter. What I like about this case is that it is not a sounds like 2 + 2 is 4. It's a management system. Remember, procurement is actually a management system. It is not 2 + 2 is 4. And we say to eliminate the inherent risk of compromise, when we attend a committee or evaluation committee, look at it, 4 or 5 people, they should be able to come to a collectively understood position, right? That is why you can be able to regulate this. But if you do it as one person, I will definitely cook the figures in such a way that if I want the case to win, you will win. But the preface in every document is very clear on how you go through the process of determining whether this contract is abnormally low or too high, or whether the correction of errors is acceptable or not acceptable. Those are the areas that really decide, and that's why when we talk about again the evaluation committee, they must be constituted of people like you. 3 or 5 people of you sitting together, you should be able to come with a rational decision. But it's not something you get in the tender document. Please make sure that it's either plus or minus, because there are other issues.
Fantastic. I think this is why Director Joshua said these trainings are best done across the desk. We take you through the preface. You can see what our senior mover is referring to. We show you the role of why you need to have a specialist or somebody who knows something very specific about this particular costing among the members. So you just don't have 5 members because they are a big number. It must be informed, that constitution must be informed by who will add value and what sort of value will they add, and how is that value going to be consumed by the other members who are in there. So as he says, it's actually, procurement is a management science, which brings together many other items. I'd ask my consultants just to be very brief in the next few questions. The other questions that we will not answer, we will make sure that we address them on the live system, and when we send you out, we'll make sure that you get them also, because you got all your emails. So every question that's answered, you'll get back, which is not answered, viva versa here. Now, Msewe is my other senior. All the documents now, are the documents now usable with all these shortcomings in them? Or this is part of public participation before the authority? So, are you implying that the GP has become an agent of public participation for the PPRA? Okay, who will take this from the panelists? I am a host. I cannot answer that question.
Yes, Chair, I can answer, Senior.
Yes.
The authority has posted those documents there for use by procuring entities. And they have, in fact, they subjected these documents to stakeholders' views, and those who participated did. And now these are the final documents that they have given for use. In fact, they are ready for use by procuring entities. However, the authority is candid, and they have said that in the process of using these big documents, we might be able to face some challenges. And therefore, they have said that if there are any recommendations that users can give to the authority to enable them be able to improve on the structure of the documents, they'll be happy to receive them and incorporate them. So we will use them as they are and then seek for improvements as time goes by. So this is a start we are doing it, and Msewe should also, as a practitioner, be able to pinpoint recommendations on where all the 23 documents can be improved so that practitioners can be able to use them without many challenges.
Thank you, Doc. We've had a total of approximately 80 questions, both in the chat and in the Q&A. In the Q&A, we have had 66 questions up to now. 30 of them have been answered by the consultants and the panelists while we were actually going through the presentation, which is again our practice at GPA. When you join us next time, please make sure you are not only listening, but you're also following the question and answer panel so that you can actually see what has been answered. So we've got about 30 that are open, and I can see that the consultants are still answering some of them. So very briefly, we've got 8 minutes. Let's take the question by Scarlett. Can the consultant see that question? Do I need to read it? Can clarification be given on the new documents as it's indicated that no part of this document shall be changed, modified, amended, reproduced, copied, or distributed without written permission from the copyright holder? Of course, the copyright holder is our authority, okay? So how are we supposed to use these documents? Okay, that's a very good question. All right. Who wants to go for that, Pam? No, Alex. Alex, I don't see you answering the question, so you are free.
Yes, through a host, I saw that there is a requirement that you get authority. But since the documents we have been instructed to use, so we have been granted the authority. That is my belief. I know why they are talking of being proprietary is that do not start reproducing them and selling to other sectors of the economy, like the first sector, the second sector, the third sector. So they are meant for use in public sector. But since we are trying to build a profession in the country and to be strong, as my senior Mbuva has said, I don't see any harm a private sector or document because it portrays fairness to all who are participating. My host, that is my input.
That's true. Let me confirm that because I have been a practitioner in 2 of those sectors. As you all know, I've been a long-time practitioner in the public sector, but also private sector. The public sector, by virtue of the amount of investment that has been put in developing systems, the public sector has got very good super documents. So if you are in the private sector and you consider this as a good document to use, there's absolutely no reason if you're working for breweries, you cannot approach the PPRA so that they guide you on how you can borrow some of the best practices in this document. This is not only for us, the practitioners who are in here. This document needs to be understood even by people who are bidding, the publics, the traders, the vendors. They also need to understand how are we going to be evaluated. So when GPA goes out there to train and to capacity build, it's not just only for us practitioners, it's also for the private sector players who actually work with us and tender for goods and services, because we want them to be knowledgeable so they can actually win the tenders by doing proper bids, etc. So that's an excellent answer, Alex. Gladys Tuku, the RFQ document is structured like an open tender. It's too long, and it's like a normal tender being evaluation in 3 stages: preliminary, technical, and financial. Is that not a duplication? Okay. Now this is specific to one of our consultants. Let's go for it. RFQ.
Right.
Yes.
Now, the RFQ is request for quotations.
Yes.
Now, the first thing you understand with the request for quotations is that you nominate about 3 to 5 providers that you think are competent to be able to supply or construct. In other words, even stopping at that place, there is no advertisement, There is no issue of using the big standard bidding document, and there are many things that you do not require, to ask for quotations. It's as simple as that. That you are not going to use the big elaborate documents for small, procurement items.
Okay.
But nevertheless, even if it's a quotation, remember, Chris, quotation is one thing that has been not just in Kenya. It's one process that has been constantly misused. When I was working in Ghana, that's one of the things I was fighting against. You find quotations, people are, the entity asks 3 people to make quotations, and the 3 people are in 3 different names, or you find the people are repeated continuously. That's why we are saying that even when you have awarded a contract and a quotation under the current transparent system, you have to publish it. That we issued this contract to so and so. We don't want to go the KEMSA way. So that if somebody like you begin to see Mbongo is constantly getting tenders through from this agency over and over, then you become suspicious that the public procurement system is not transparent, something is cooking. And that is why we're saying here, in the quotations, you cannot reject somebody on the basis of that is not eligible or not qualified, because you nominated the person. So you cannot come back and say this contractor or this supplier cannot supply because he is not competent.
Qualified. Okay. Good. Now, many of you have asked Engineer Chris, could you kindly send us the notes? Yes, we've got your emails. We have a method by which we avail notes to yourselves. Although honestly, these are very small notes. Considering what we plan to do with yourselves, these are really small notes. But we will avail these notes to all of you, and we normally avail the notes to you on the cloud so that you are able to access them anywhere, everywhere you go. That's our approach, that's our policy, and we have very good reasons for that. So for everybody who is logged in here, we'll process out, we'll process your attendance, we'll process the time you are in, and normally we have a reasonable cutoff that if you are in the program for about 70% of the time, then you have attended in full. If you are in the program for less than that, then we struggle to give you a certificate, because we want to be honest to you that you have actually assimilated the learning, and also not to abuse the time and donations by the practitioners who are consultants, that when they were here, you were here and you got the time. So to answer you, yes, we will give you the notes, we will upload them, and you'll access them from your email, and you'll not download them, but you'll read them. Okay, so they are available to you. Lastly, I want to thank you. I really want to thank you very, very much for your time, for being here. We appreciate very, very much. We don't take it for granted. And the views that you have given are very important for us in designing and shaping the product that should come to you, in liaison, of course, with the people like the regulator and the others. Please, as our tradition, could you raise your hands? There are over 400 of you on the chat now. Could you raise your hands and salute the panelists and the presenters? I also want to thank the technical team from GPA. Banambuva, our senior, do you want to say one word on behalf of all the consultants? Could you want to say one word of goodbye to the participants?
Chris, I think this is the first time I've interacted with your team. I think you have got a very informative team. I've listened to how they were presenting their pieces, and I was very impressed. I think the challenge now is for you as GPA to get in touch with PPRI and begin to see how you can collectively begin to plan on a training program, because I cannot see how this country can escape training people on proper procurement. If we are going to move out of what we are seeing in the counties and the commissions and the ministries, if we are going to reduce the 2 billion stolen per day to something like maybe 1 million, then Chris and your team, you have a big job to do. Thank you. We are together.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I want to confirm to the participants that our senior is extremely busy. when I retire, I just want to be like him, working on a project in South Africa, another one in Europe, another one in US, just all while you are seated in Nairobi. Really wonderful how technology has made it possible for the seniors to continue to do their work from where they are without a lot of travel. The second point he confirmed to me is that he's really available for us as practitioners and also as part of the GPA team to be able, as long as we can plan in advance, so that he can carve out time and come and share some of his huge experience, because that's not acquired overnight. It's acquired, it's a huge investment, and we want to tap onto that, and we want to leverage it onto them. I think our senior, thank you very much for speaking on behalf of our consultants. On behalf of the consultants, I want to appreciate your compliments. They are actually truly wonderful. They give everything and they prepare very thoroughly so that when they come, they all look uniform and they do their very best.